Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough, and here is a mini dose of Dr. Debbie where I'm sharing tips, suggestions, strategies, and sometimes just motivation to have you move past your betrayal once and for all. Hi there. So today I want to talk about making decisions. Think about how many decisions you make in a day. Everything from what you eat, what you wear, who you see, what you do, what you say, what you think, what you believe. We are making decisions all day long. Now, some of those decisions are taking us closer to what we want, whether it's the health, the relationships, the joy, the whatever. And some of those decisions are taking us further from what we want. And so often we're not really conscious of it. Which direction are our decisions taking us? But I was working with some of our members in the PBT Institute. They have a group call with me every 2 weeks, and one of our members asked a question, and her question was about, she's in the process of separation and divorce, and it was a question about managing the kids with her ex. And I asked her, let's play out each of these and see what feels best. One way she was going to handle a situation was going to be, let's say, withhold the kids or whatever it was. And she played it out and she said, and I said, okay, how did that feel? It didn't really feel that good. It may temporarily feel okay, but long-term, that doesn't feel well. So then I asked her, okay, let's play out this other decision where you did things more from a place of fairness or whatever. How did that feel? And she said, well, it's kind of hard, but it felt better. And a few things about this. First of all, check in with your body when you're making a decision, because your body will tell you if that decision is good or bad for you. Meaning, if it's a decision that is not feeling good, that does not resonate with you, you're going to feel closed, tight, restricted. It's more of a it's not that enlightened, expanded, open, energized feeling. So check in with your body. But one of the other things that she found really helpful, and I'm hoping you do too, is I said to her, when you're considering this decision, let's say you were in stage 5 already, because I always talk about the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. If you were in stage 5, from that place, what decision would you make? And it just flew right out of her, where she would do the right thing, even though it temporarily would feel kind of painful, but she knows it's in her best interest. It's in her kids' best interest. It's just the overall right thing to do. And it's so interesting because when you check in with that highest and best version of yourself, those decisions come easy. But you know what happens? We make decisions from where we are. Of course, right? But we make decisions from where we are, and it leads to more of the same. And you may have heard me say, when you're in stage 3, you're making stage 3 decisions. When you're in stage 4, you're making stage 4 decisions. When you're in stage 5, you're making stage 5 decisions. And that's why I always recommend get yourself to stage 5 so that your decisions come from this place of clarity and strength versus scarcity and lack and fear. So when it comes to any decision you make, what would happen if you ran that decision by that stage 5 version of you? Let's just I'll give you a few examples so you see how this works. For example, let's say this stage 5 version of you looks great, feels great in your own skin. Well, in order to be there, you have to be working on your body in some way. So let's take eating, for example. Here's that meal that is not in your best interest, that is going to make you feel bad because it doesn't resonate with you, those ingredients, whatever it is, right? The stage 3 version of you may be like, who cares? I deserve it. This, that, the other thing, right? But if you were to run that by the stage 5 version of you, what would that stage 5 version of you say? Maybe something like, well, it looks great, but you know what? I've probably had enough of that to last me a lifetime. And it's more important to feel good in my own skin. I mean, I'm just making this up, whatever it is for you. But what would happen if, let's say, you ran by another situation where there's a toxic friend? A toxic friend who is just a taker, never gives. She or he is always there dumping on you. And then and they feel good because it's been unloaded and you feel spent, depleted, exhausted, right? And so the version of you now may feel like, well, what am I going to do? It's just, I'm being a good friend, this, that, the other thing. And you may make a decision from that place where you just continually get dumped on at your own expense. But if you ran that through the stage 5 version of you, what would that version of you say? Maybe you'd say, hey, you know what? I can talk about this at this time for this amount of time, something, but some sort of change. But the more you tap into that stage 5 version of you, the more you begin to make decisions from that place. And here's the best part of it. It also helps you become that version even quicker, because think about it. If you're checking in with that stage 5 version of you, with what you're wearing, what you're eating, how you're speaking, what you're doing, what you're not doing. Can you see how the more often you check in with that version of you, the sooner you become that version of you? Now, I'm not saying there's not all that other stuff to clean up, but this is just an additional, if you want like the fast track version of getting to stage 5, you want to include this as well. Let's look at it in business. Let's say there's a business opportunity that you're really, here you are, you're in your work, you've been in this company for a while. Let's say you're working with someone else. You're in this company for a while. Here comes this opportunity. The stage, let's say 3 version of you says, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that. I don't, do I have the skills? Do I have what it takes? Am I good enough? Do I deserve it? All that nonsense we put ourselves through. Well, what would the stage 5 version of you do? What would the stage 5 version of you think? What would the stage 5 version of you feel, right? Would that help you make that decision a little bit easier? When it comes to, let's say you're in your own business, and listen, I've been in business 32 years, and there have been so many instances where I've made decisions from that place of lack and scarcity. But what would have happened if I made that decision from my stage 5 place? What would I have done? What would I have overcome, because the stage 5 version of me sees let's say the stage 3 version of me very, very differently. Do you see how this works? So often when we're, let's say, in stage 3 and we're thinking those stage 3 thoughts, hanging out with those stage 3 people, doing those stage 3 things, all of it, it's keeping us stuck in stage 3. I love this analogy of I haven't shared it in a while, but it's just so true. If you've ever seen a bucket of crabs, you don't even have to put a lid on that bucket. They are so content swirling around the bottom. They're just moving around. And then have you ever noticed there's always that one kind of hopeful crab? The crab that thinks, I don't know what's on the other side of this bucket, but I have a feeling it's got to be better than this. And so they climb and they climb and they climb. And then what do you always see? You always see one other crab grabbing on to its claw, saying, if I'm in here, so are you. If I'm stuck, so are you, and pulls it right back down. So when it comes to doing something differently, it's so hard when you're in your same toxic soup, whether that's the toxic soup of your own thoughts, of the people you've been spending time with, of the people you're around. You may have heard that saying, we are the 5 people we spend the most time with. And even if you don't have five people in your life you're spending time with, that means you. What are the thoughts you're thinking? Are they moving you forward? Or are they keeping you stuck in a place that's really not in your best interest, that's not moving you forward, that's not helping you in any way? And what happens is time passes. Time is passing. And if you're thinking the same thoughts, doing the same thing, the same things, being with the same people who maybe are they're coming from that place of lack and scarcity too. Well, what's happening? What's happening when you look at your life? And we don't like to play it forward, but take everything you're doing, the way you're doing it, and run that 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future. What does that look like? Is it good? It may be, then that's wonderful. But if you play that out 5 to 10 years, where will you be? How will your work be? Doing the same thing or not doing the same thing? 5 to 10 years in the future, what does that look like? Let's take your health. Doing the same thing, not doing the same thing. Run that 5 to 10 years into the future. What does that look like? Is it better? Is it worse? Take your relationships, doing what you're doing, not doing what you're doing. Run that into the future 5 to 10 years. What does it look like? Is that good? Is that what you want? Is it not? You know, we so often we don't like change. We consider the thought of it, and then you know what happens? One of the first things we think about is it's going to shake up all those people around me. It's going to change what I have it all figured out. It took all this time to figure out where I go, who I'm with, what I do, all of it. The routine has been set, so I'm just going to make that work somehow. And we actually sabotage these changes, because the thought of these changes, because of the shakeup that they may create. But what's the price you're paying? When you think of anybody who's done anything phenomenal, like some thought leader, some of our time, someone who has just created an incredible business based off of something that everybody told them they were crazy, whatever it was. Think of what they had to go through in order to make that jump out of the crab bucket. They had to maybe go against everybody that was saying, "Oh, are you crazy? What are you nuts? This and that and the other thing." And, and just feel strong enough in their conviction to do it anyway, or believe in themselves enough to do it anyway, or imagine themselves at their highest and best, that stage 5 version of themselves, and do it anyway. If I tell you how many people, when I said I was going back for a PhD at 50, and here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business, and I had, it was just after my betrayal. So here I was on my own, right? My husband was out of the house. I was like, that's it, here I go. And people thought I was nuts, and I did too. And I remember I wasn't even sure myself, why am I doing this? I just felt like there was no book on this. There was no program on this. I could not find anything about how to help me heal. So I just figured I would just do a whole PhD on it and figure it out myself. To go through and combat my own thoughts as I was healing from betrayal here. I mean, I was, you know how your head is when you're going through this, but fighting my own thoughts. Are you crazy? Are you nuts? Do you have what it takes? You're not that smart. How are you going to do that? How are you going to write those papers? How all of the chatter and all of the noise, and truly just fighting every time one of those limiting beliefs came up. And it wasn't even like the process once I combated my own head, it was easy. I'll never forget. I had to do a paper, and I hadn't written these like for academic research and all this kind of stuff. My writing was the kind of writing I did for blogs. So it was a whole different thing, or just my first book or something. And it was totally, totally different. And I remember my professor saying, Debbie, would you mind if I used your paper as an example? And I was like, oh, I felt so good that here my paper was being used to help the class. Well, I didn't realize it was being used. And she asked me, and it was very kind that she asked, but she asked me because of how incorrectly all my grammar was, and how wrong my citations and my and all my research, all this stuff. I mean, everything I didn't know. And I actually had to redo that same paper 5 times. 5 times. And it was grueling and it was awkward and it was uncomfortable. And I felt so dumb. And I mean, I was calling myself every possible name I could think of. This was before the change I made after betrayal, and I will share that. Um, but it was such a learning process. But if I only came at it from that lack and scarcity and fear based version of me, I would have just stayed. I would have given up. I would have said, this is just way too hard. Who needs this? I'm paying for this. I'm taking so much time away that I didn't have. What am I doing? But I kept checking in with a version of me that I didn't yet meet, saying, there's got to be something really good at the end of this. And because I always share with you that same quote, hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's going to be one of those two. And I decided moving through all of that experience was just one big lump of hard now, easy later. I was just not going to take that easy route. I was in so much pain that it felt like easy now, whatever that looked like, doing my same thing, being that same way, whatever it was only going to prolong my pain. And I felt like I didn't have the luxury of that. I had kids, I had clients, I had all my dogs, like I had to get it together. So it seemed to me, it was almost like, with the Band-Aid, you have a Band-Aid on. You can take the Band-Aid off slowly and it's going to hurt the whole time, or you rip the Band-Aid off and it's going to really hurt, but then you're good, right? It was sort of like that. And just before I forget, I want to make sure I bring that back. Pre-betrayal and at the very beginning, I was always so hard on myself, talk about that inner critic. I let that inner critic run rampant within me, taking over my mind and believing everything it said. And then you may have heard me share this, but I talked about one of the changes that I made, because when you're healing from your betrayal and when you are intentionally and deliberately creating a new version of yourself, you look at every single thing you think, say, do, feel, all of it. And if it doesn't serve, you change it. That's the opportunity. And I remember really looking at that, the way I had been speaking to myself and the way I'd been talking to myself and the way I'd been treating myself. And I was like, you would never do this to anybody. You would never say anything like that to your friends. You would never say anything like that to your kids. Why in the world are you saying that stuff to yourself? So that's when I decided that the same things I used to do that I would call, all kinds of names have now become adorable. And the whole family has to go along with it. So I always use that example of, like, I get lost wherever I go. I just do. And now I do. And it's just adorable. So that was part of that deliberate, intentional creation, because when I looked at the stage 5 version of myself that I didn't yet meet, did I want to be that harsh and that critical, or did I want to be kind and loving? When you look at that, and this is with everything, how do you want to show up? Who do you want to be? Do you want to be that hard on yourself? Do you want to have these ideas and these beliefs that you're not lovable, that you're not worthy, that you're not deserving? Do you want to have a pile of regret of, well, I didn't believe in myself, so I didn't do those things? Or would you rather sit there and celebrate all your triumphs because, wow, this was really hard, but go look at me. I even talk about in From Hardened to Healed, where my absolute dream and what I would love so much would be, this is part of my evolved stage 5 version, and I hope you're a part of it. Here I am, I'm 90 years old, and what I've turned my business into, because now it's this beautiful legacy with the PBT Institute. It is just a thriving, amazing space where people move through the stages and graduate. And we have PBT coaches all over the world. And we have PBT support groups all over the world. And we have, and PBT corporate, we are in so many businesses helping people truly move through their betrayal so that they could get back to doing the work they do in just the best way possible. And we have our certified PBT coaches, a part of PBT corporate. Like, it is all working. It's all great. It's all wonderful. But I picture, now that I'm 90, I figure that'd be a good time to just take it down a notch, perhaps, and not speaking so often and those kinds of things, that I have the most magnificent house right on the water, looking over the Pacific Ocean. And it's a magnificent house because I want all of my family and my kids and my grandkids and just this wonderful space to go. But I have decided that every single day, this is my dream, every single day, and I don't want to spoil it for you, in Trust Again. I mean, I'm sorry, From Hardened to Healed, but it's in there, that I schedule a 2-hour session every day where I meet up with people who have moved through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. And they bring me their pictures and their journals and their stories. And they come into my home and we go sit on my beautiful deck overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and they have I'm giving them some tea or some lemonade or some water and maybe some healthy snacks, or maybe not so healthy because by the time you're 90, you can eat whatever you want. And they are just sharing their story and their struggle and what they did and how they overcame. And they have someone who just loves nothing more than celebrating their success, because here they are celebrating their stage 5 journey and all it took to get there, and all the struggles, and all the times they had to overcome their limiting beliefs, and all the times they had to overcome the people in their lives saying, you can't, you're not enough, you're not this, you're not that. And even if they hadn't said those things recently, all they had to overcome because of the programming from way back, and all they did to move through it. And all those times they felt, oh, should I really do this? That's too big. That's too scary. And they did it anyway. And then something didn't work, but because of it, that it gave them the most amazing idea to do this next thing. And we have this 2-hour discussion every single day. So Monday through Friday, I'm going to leave the weekends off. Monday through Friday, that's what I'm doing. Is that not like that's my dream anyway? To me, that's just so beautiful. We don't celebrate our successes enough. And I see this with men, but I see this especially with women. We're so good at saying all we haven't done, what we stink at, what's yet left to do. And we're not that good at celebrating our successes, celebrating all we've overcome, giving ourselves that pat on the back for just in all we're able to manage, in all we're able to do. I mean, think about it. Even if, let's say you're just managing your busy work and home life. Is that not enough right there? I mean, you're raising kids, or you're taking care of aging parents, or you're contributing to the community, or you're taking care of your pets, or you're being an amazing friend, or you're doing community service, or you're climbing the corporate ladder, whatever it is, we don't give ourselves the acknowledgement, the validation, and the love that we deserve. But when we're in that stage 5 place, then we do. And what I want for all of you is give yourself the edge to get there sooner. And that's by thinking, feeling, acting, believing, behaving as that stage 5 version of you now. And I know there are so many of you who are like, there's no way, I feel horrible. How in the world could I think, act, behave, react, any of that as a stage 5 version? I could barely make it out of bed. Okay, well, maybe it's the most simple first step you can take. If you're really feeling like I could barely hold it together, well, any part of you that your stage 5 version of you, what could you do now? Would your stage 5 version sit and have a cup of coffee and take a minute just to do, just to journal or breathe, right? Do that now. Would if you go into your closet and your clothes, just don't represent the version of you you're working towards, or you don't feel good when you put them on, or it's ripped, or something is torn, and you're just, or whatever it is, or it's just so old and it has no meaning for you, and you decide just take that one shirt and get rid of it or donate it, whatever, there you go. Any single thing you can do to act like that stage 5 version of you. If you decide, I'm not as present as I want to be. Okay, well, the next time you have a conversation with someone, look them in the eyes, right? Or you decide, you realize, I'm not as loving as I want to be. Okay, become that person who gives someone a giant hug when you see them. The way it works in becoming stage 5, of course, moving through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, but it's also looking at people around you and realizing what qualities and characteristics do they have that I want to try on. And it's not coming from a place of jealousy. It's coming from a place of admiration. It's like, wow, you know what? I like that they're doing that. I like how that made me feel. I'm going to try that. Let me see how that goes. And see if that's part of that stage 5 version of you that you want to be. We change so much. And even it's funny because when I'll start with someone who's working with me at the transform level within the PBT Institute, I ask them who they want to be in stage 5, knowing full well that they can only see certain things when they're in stage 2 or stage 3. But as they heal, they see things they didn't have access to when they were stuck in their trauma. But what can you see from where you are right this very moment? What can you see that stage 5 version of you doing that the current version of you is not doing now? And think about how life would change over time if once a week, once a month, you did something and added that to your repertoire of what you're including in order to become that stage 5 version of you. When it comes to your health, what are you doing to eat better, move better, sleep better, take better care of yourself? What are you doing with your in your relationships that stage 5 version of you would do or wouldn't do? As far as your work goes, how could you show up differently, more like that stage 5 version of you? Is it something you say? Is it something you do? Is it something that you were afraid to put forward and now you are? Take a look at these things. These changes happen. They don't happen by accident and they don't happen by default. They happen intentionally. So it's time to take a look. And I'm not saying overhaul everything you're doing. I'm saying just choose one thing that this current version of you is not doing, that the stage 5 version of you is. And when you check in, you will know what he or she is thinking. You will know what he or she is saying, and you will know what he or she wants you to do. And if you don't yet have the incentive to do that for you, and I know when we're so hard hit, we just can't see it. If you have someone you love in your life, your kids, your pets, friends, relatives, whatever, do it for them. Because here's the thing too, everything is energy, every single thing. And we think others around us don't get a sense of us and what we're feeling and all of that, but they do. So your change will be felt, your change will be noticed, your change will be inspirational for others around you. So to wrap this up, really what I would recommend is check in with that stage 5 version of you. It doesn't matter if you haven't met them yet. That version of you is waiting to be birthed. The sooner you think, act, react, move, everything as that stage 5 version of you, and you find out what he or she would do by checking in, and the more often you do that, the sooner you become. Of course, all the other things you need to do to move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. But this is, if you want to get on the fast track to get there, That definitely helps. So I hope this helped you, and I'll see you next time. You need the right tools, support, and the right community to move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. And we have all that within the PBT Institute. So join us at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. There's a version of you who's so confident, healthy, peaceful, and happy on the other end of your healing. And we can't wait to help you get there. We got you. Thanks for listening. And here's to your breakthrough.